You guys, we did it. We are officially the most annoying generation to work with. And the top reason that managers find us insufferable are lack of technological skills. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to teach someone to print something to PDF, how many times I've had to teach someone to add two things together in Excel. So I think my proposal is that we stop doing all that and we just let them figure it out themselves.
I am willing to bet that this is because Gen Z says they don't know how to do it, so their managers don't ask to do their work for them again. I mean, I personally don't teach to fish nor give them the fish. Now they can buy a fish from me if they wish, but I do not do anything for free.
I have 2 Gen Z daughters. Not the most annoying generation at all. They are so smart and independent. Gen Z is going to change the world.
The lack of tech skills has some legs. Younger people don't really use computers as much as phones and tablets. Not their fault so much, but it's true.
Trouble for Gen Z in the workplace. Employers are reporting that this generation is the most difficult to work with.
You want to know what's funny? Come here. It's not that the new generation is more difficult to work with, it's that the older generation is more difficult to work for, right? Because in the article it further explains that the newer generation is more difficult to work with, right? Because apparently they're easily offended. Get so close right now. I promise you it's the older generation that is more offended than anybody else. If you don't believe me, go to your boss and ask for a raise and watch how offended everybody gets, right? Or put in your 2-week notice and watch how personal your boss takes that, right? Another reason was apparently the new generation is untrustworthy. I promise you, during your job interview, when your boss says, we're like a family, and then you have to take a day off because it's a personal issue, watch them make you feel so guilty for doing so, right? And lastly, they said that the newer generation apparently are lazy. It's not that they're lazy. They're not getting paid enough to do more than what they're already hired to do. That's not called being lazy. That's called taking a stance and having standards.
Difficult to work with equals, I can't control and manipulate them.
I'm a millennial in the workplace. They're right. Gen Z is so fucking entitled. They think everyone needs to cater to their bullshit.
I mean, they are the people who literally make the business run. So yeah, you kinda have to cater to their bullshit.
What the article means to say is, older generations don't like working with Gen Z because Gen Z doesn't want their labor exploited by the older generations.
Gen Z is better at setting boundaries, but older generations label it as being offended or lazy.
As a millennial, I'm literally taking notes from Gen Z. I work to have a life, not live to work.
And to demonstrate how out of touch the generations are, most millennials don't watch cable news, even fewer Gen Z. Who was this story for?
The older generations, obviously. They like staying in their own egotistical delusions.
Gen Z, my generation, I think is honestly the worst generation. I just got off work, I'm in my car and I'm scrolling, and I see yet again another girl in my generation crying about how she doesn't want to work. Now don't get me wrong, I know inflation is crazy and I know that jobs aren't paying you as much as they should to keep up with inflation. However, everyone needs to work an 8-hour day, 5 days a week. That's literally life, okay? I think the problem with my generation stems from everyone started working a lot later than other generations previously. I started working when I was 14, but a lot of people my age didn't start working until they finished college, honestly. And I think that's a big problem. So I think part of it is like they're not used to working, but everyone works 8-hour days, 5 days a week, full time. That's how it is. And life isn't fair. So if you're my generation watching this, just get a job.
I'm in your generation. Started working at 13 and now I work 50 plus hours a week at 22. Has nothing to do with generation.
I work because I have to, not because I want to. If I could support myself without working, I would do it. Don't care if people think I'm lazy.
I started working third shift at Amazon, worked overtime, worked on off days and didn't come close to affording my own rent, groceries. Some nights I walked 17 miles in 10 hours, but that's my fault?
No, that is not life. That is slavery.
Is Gen Z really difficult to work with?
So, a new resume builder survey of 1,300 plus managers and business leaders revealed 74% found that those people who are 26 and younger tend to be the most challenging to work with. What are some of the top reasons? A lack of technological skills. That one surprised me. Lack of motivation. They're easily distracted, easily offended, and dishonest.
What a bullshit survey. Like, I can't even believe this was a news story. Breaking news. Old people think young people are lazy. Story at 11. Might as well be breaking news. Old man yells at clouds. And I especially like that it said that they're easily offended.
They're easily distracted, easily offended.
Oh boy, you can't even slap a coworker on the ass these days. You can't even honk a woman's boob without the woke Gen Z getting offended. Okay, but here's the truth of the whole thing. Most of these companies would lay you off in a heartbeat if it affected their bottom line, and Gen Z knows that. They might even be the first generation to enter the workforce knowing that. I'm not telling you to be lazy on someone else's dime, but a lot of these companies don't give a damn about you, and it's perfectly acceptable to not give a damn back.
Gen Z is toxic. That's what a crazy amount of employers believe, and it can affect your money and your entire financial future. Look at the crazy statistics behind this. 68% of small business owners say Gen Z were the least reliable of their employees. One of the baby boomer bosses said absolute delusion, complete lack of common sense, and zero critical reasoning or basic analytical skills. And this could explain a lot, like one of the reasons this Gen Z man went viral after applying to 200 jobs. And of the bosses, 62% said Gen Z was the most likely to create division and toxicity in the workplace. But it gets a whole lot worse. Worse to the point that they might not even hire them anymore, because they fear the toxicity could lead to company lawsuits, as 57% says Gen Z run the most risk of creating a workplace lawsuit. But Gen Z does have some defenders. Dan Space, an HR consultant, said this. He says you can't intimidate Gen Z the way that you could with millennials, nor do they have the Gen X apathy. He says the portrayal of Gen Z as toxic for the workplace is not only unjust, but also overlooks the broader context of the evolving workplace. They want transparency, inclusivity, and purpose for their work. The bosses don't believe they'll stick around, and they're kind of right. 71% of Gen Zers would quit their jobs tomorrow for one who better supported their well-being, and 31% would consider a pay cut for exchange of a happier, healthier environment.
As owner of a small company, I'll take my chances without them.
I am customer service trainer and it's 50-50. They are either super smart or lack common sense, lol.
I don't know what to tell you cause I don't know anyone that complains more than my boomer coworkers.
My entire department that constantly breaks records is almost completely made up of Gen Z and is doing just fine. We do worse when older people come in and try to tell us what to do.
Employers are toxic. Guess it takes one to know one.
It's come out recently that the Gen Z generation is the saddest generation ever. More susceptible to depression and just in general feel like they have no sort of motivation to kind of succeed in life. And if you hear anyone saying this is because they don't want to work hard or they aren't made like they're used to, or any sort of shit like that, tell that person to go fuck themselves. Because look at this logically, right? Either in one generation humans have evolved to become more susceptible to depression and feel less motivated, which feels unlikely, or we're fundamentally letting them down and giving them absolutely zero chance of sort of achieving success because they're just so crushed by everything that's going on. So it's absolutely just not true and not fair to blame Gen Z for the situation because they are being given a rough entry level to adulthood. So please, it's not Gen Z's problem. It's absolutely our problem to fix, and we've got to do better.
On paper, I earned twice what my father did at the same age. But by now he was on his third house, 2 cars, 3 holidays a year, lots in savings.
Not sure. Currently it's the easiest time in history ever to become self-made. So many opportunities, I think other things are at play.
Guys, wait till Gen Alpha come. Basically wait 3 years, then you will see people are getting depression at like 9 because of how much pressure we have to deal with.
We still have people born in the 1940s in high-ranking government positions. Ergo, the positions lower than that are held on and not passed on. Opportunity is not being passed on.
Let's talk about how entitled Gen Z really is. And it starts with this graph. Right here, 1980, 1990. This is where a lot of the Boomer and Gen X consultants that you see on that article came from, where if you worked really hard, you would get rewarded with higher pay, promotion. But look what's been happening right around the time Gen Z was born over here. Their pay is this tiny little sliver that's barely inching up. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 and CEO pay is exploding. So, who's entitled? The working person who just wants to meet their bare standard of living for an honest day's work, or CEOs whose pay has gone almost 1,000% upward without sharing any of that with the people whose labor made them rich. Who's really entitled here?
My adult children will probably be living with me for another decade, or forever. There's no exit on the horizon.
I do the minimum requirements at work. My coworkers like to beat each other in stats. I like to beat that level in Candy Crush I was stuck on for 5 days and refuse to pay to play.
We need to instate a maximum wage in America.
We are the most productive workers in the history of humanity and do not get compensated as such.
I'm Gen Z. I literally do almost 2 times the work of my 40 and 50 plus coworkers, and I probably only actually work 3 hours a day.
I think a CEO's pay should only 10 times the minimum full-time salary. That way the CEO is motivated to pay more to the bottom end in order to pay themselves more.